It's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell.
All right, this is Gary Garver sitting in for Judge Herb Dodell. The judge is in the elevator. He's on his way here, so don't panic. The judge will be here, and he'll be talking about, I don't really know what the judge is going to be talking about. We'll have to find out what the judge is talking about. Hey, the judge just here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. Judge, how are you?
Okay, just back from New York.
You just got back from New York.
Just got back.
Well, you just got back. Well, you can put on your headphones if you like, and we can.
Are we on already?
We're on. Yeah. Well, we had to
my
start the
goodness.
show. We had to start the show. The show must go on, and we didn't
Well,
want to run a replay for Christ's
Well,
sake.
you know what? I might as well share this with you because I just mentioned it to her. I was talking on the phone to one of the deputy district attorneys in a case, a criminal case, serious criminal case, out in Riverside. So I was so happy to be able to go over a lot of the things I needed to go over. I kind of lost track of time.
Okay.
But I
that's
said
okay.
I told her I was going to say nice things about her. She says, check with me first before you say anything. So I said, okay.
You always got to
I'll
be aware
do
of
that.
distractions, Judge. You know, women will distract you. You know what I mean?
And she's very nice.
Well, I'm sure she is. But the show had. But did you tell her about your radio show?
I did. She said she Googled me.
Googled you.
People Google you. You know.
I know.
You know, these days, if somebody mentions a name to you, the first thing you do is you run over and you Google them.
Did you see 60 Minutes where it said Google basically runs like 98% of all the ads and things like that, and search engines or something like that for people and places and all that stuff.
Well, you know, it's very interesting if you think about it. Between Google and Facebook and all these others, the information that we used to think was private and confidential is no longer private and confidential. People who do things in emails and whatever, or texts and over the internet, there's no more privacy. If you think we have rights of privacy, those days are pretty much gone.
Scary. By the way,
yeah, it is.
It is.
It's very scary. It's the book, 1984.
Yeah. By the way, happy birthday.
Oh, it was yesterday.
I know. Well, how old were you? How old were you?
I told my wife I shouldn't start talking about my age because it turns people off.
Come on. What are you? You got to be what? 58.
Oh, I wish I was 58. I remember 58. Not a bad year.
I'm only 2 years away from that.
No, I was 79.
79?
79.
You look great. You're sharp as a whip.
Hey, I'm working on it.
You're looking good.
I'm walking and swimming and doing and
that's good.
Challenging. You know, every day is another challenge.
Amen. Amen. So what are we talking about today? What do you got on the agenda?
I was thinking, if you watch basketball, every now and again you see there's like a half a second left.
Yeah.
And when a guy takes a shot from mid-court and it goes in, and the crowd, of course, goes crazy. You know, why did it go in?
Luck?
No, I don't believe in luck.
You don't believe in luck?
Absolutely not.
No?
No, luck is random.
Okay.
Luck is random. Nothing in life is random. Everything is determined. And how does a great golfer, one of the great golfers of the world, miss a 3-foot putt? Why? I mean, they have the talent. They have the ability. The guy that takes a shot from mid-court, what's the chances that's going to go in?
Not too much.
100%.
Why 100%?
Because that's what that guy wanted to have happen.
Okay.
And so in his mind, in his consciousness, he saw that happening. He took the shot and it went in. Otherwise, it hits the rim or it goes off to the side or whatever it is. And that's the way it really works. Again, I was thinking about a good example, really good example. And it goes back a while now. I remember it vividly. I had a case against an insurance company, which was what I normally was doing anyway. And they were claiming that there were no bars and gates on the building, and therefore it didn't comply with insurance requirements, the underwriting requirements. And that was their defense. It was $1 million some odd claim. And I had a book, a binder, you know, we put together. There were at least 100 photographs in there, at least 100. And I didn't have an index. And while it came up, one of the worst things you can do as a trial lawyer is look unprepared. I mean, it's a very bad thing to do. And so I got the book on the counsel table, and I walk over to the book, and I need one picture. There's one picture in there somewhere that shows there was a bar and a gate somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I walked over to the counsel table. I opened the book. What page do you think it was? The page with the one photograph I was looking for. Out of 100 pages, I turned the book to that one page. Why?
Because you wanted it.
I did. It's all up. It's called consciousness. It's the same thing when I think I mentioned, I know I mentioned it in the book. I had a client, his name was Michael. He was a stockbroker having a bitter fight with his ex-wife. You can relate to that.
What? I haven't fought with her.
No, but you paid her $50,000. So, you were a gentleman. You were a gentleman.
I was, I didn't, yeah.
Bottom line was.
Oh, you got to bring it up.
I got to bring it up, right? Look, I haven't brought up Baldy the Clown for a while.
Well, I don't mind talking about him.
Okay, well.
Anyways, I hear you. Go ahead.
The bottom line was he had been fighting with her for years, and there was some property in dispute.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I heard the story. I listened, I took good notes, which I always did. And by the used to ask me if I ever tape recorded my clients. No, I didn't. But I took notes of everything that we talked about. And I told him what my retainer was. He said, fine, wrote me a check. We talked for a few minutes. He's walking out the door. And I hear him say, kind of half under his breath, oh, my luck, I'm going to lose this one too.
Wow.
And I said, excuse me? I was sitting by my desk, and he must have been 15 feet away.
Yeah.
And I said, what did you just say? Well, my luck, I said, let me give you your check back, Michael. He said, what? He was shocked. I was going to give him his money back. I said, no, I'm not in business to lose. And if you think you're going to lose,
you're going to lose.
You're going to lose.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In fact, words are very, very important.
I agree with you.
When you think about it, I stand in elevators sometimes, and I hear people say, he's killing me. He'll be the death of me, or whatever. You can't say those kinds of things.
Right.
Because that's an expression of something that might just end up getting manifested. So the guy with the shot from mid-court, it was going in. He saw himself as a winner. In fact, if you look at basketball coaches, like the coach at Duke, Krzyzewski,
right,
wins every year.
Yes, he does.
Whether it's the recruiting class, wins every year. Larry Brown, he at one time coached the Clippers even.
Yes, he did.
He won wherever he went.
Yes, he did.
And there were other guys that seemed to, whatever it is, they just seem to lose.
Right.
Why is that? Because that's their consciousness. And so one of the tips that I want to give to the people listening to the show, to help them really, is start changing your consciousness. Start seeing yourself for who you really are.
Think winning.
Yes, think winning. Exactly right. In fact, when you pick lawyers, I put this in the book too.
From the trench to the bench, by the way. Available on Amazon.
True. I said, you have to really be careful of what you're saying. And if you can train yourself to think of yourself as a winner, you have to do the same thing with regard to the lawyer you're picking. Who do you want to be your lawyer? Who do you want? You want somebody who's going to win.
Absolutely.
You're not in the business to lose. In fact, I was talking to somebody this morning about being involved in a lawsuit. She's very upset, going to be involved in a lawsuit. And it's a life changer for many people. You've talked about that with me before.
Yes.
Pretty soon you can't sleep at night, and eating habits, and all of these things happen because you're involved in a dramatic, chaotic, what appears to be uncontrollable circumstance.
Disturbing.
You got to start. If you want to be in a lawsuit, if you have to be in a lawsuit, you need to start with taking a deep breath, sitting down and saying, what am I doing in this lawsuit? What's my goal? What do I expect to do? If you're in it just to get revenge, or you're going to prove that you're right, or you agree, or whatever it may be, you've married yourself to that. You don't want to do that.
Right.
You better change your motivation, change your consciousness, and you'll hit the shot from mid-court.
I dig
We'll talk about right after the break.
All right. It's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell. If you want to ask him any questions, email him at askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
AM KCAA.
Herb Dodell is a lawyer and a judge for the people. Having served as a Superior Court judge, presiding over more than 9,000 cases, he has witnessed firsthand how complicated and corrupt the legal system can be. His goal is to show how things really work in the legal system, so that people can navigate the legal system in the best way for them. Many people often feel marginalized by the legal system and are uninformed about how to proceed when unfortunate circumstances arise in their life. Judge Herb will pull back the curtain, lift the veil, so people can truly understand their rights, have access to top legal personnel that they can trust, and have knowledge about how things work so they can make better choices. Judge Herb isn't just knowledgeable. His integrity and spiritual values are truly what make him different. He cares about democratizing access and information for all and desires to turn on the light so the people, you, can benefit. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, so you have to ask yourself the logical question. If you expect to get something and it doesn't happen, and you can really say to yourself, yeah, my consciousness was I was supposed to get it, and you don't, isn't that a little inconsistent?
It can be, yes.
Not really.
No?
No.
I said
Because,
it can be.
Look, people lose not because they're bad people or otherwise, but because they're supposed to. And you end up paying an old debt. There's a great story. In fact, I heard it for about the 40th time this weekend. It's a little interesting, a little esoteric. The story goes like this. A guy has a briefcase with about $250,000 in cash in it. Goes to the park, sits down at a park bench, has to go to the bathroom. It's right, 15 feet away, right? So he leaves his little briefcase on the park bench with all the money in it. Goes to the bathroom, comes back out. But in the meantime, before he comes out, somebody walks over, sees the briefcase, opens it up, sees all the cash, picks it up and leaves. Just goes away. Gone. Meantime, another guy is walking by, and he's tired, so he's going to stop, and he sits on that bench. Of course, the briefcase is gone. By then, the guy comes out of the bathroom, right? He says, okay, where's my briefcase? He says, what briefcase? He says, my briefcase. I left my briefcase there. He says, I don't know anything about any briefcase. So the number one guy beats him up. So he says, so what's the moral of the story? What's the story really all about? The hidden meaning of the story? The first guy had been partners with the second guy in a business in a past life, past experience. I'm not going to get into reincarnation and everything, subject matters, but whether you believe in it or you don't, this is the purpose of the story. It says that he beats the guy up, and so what had really happened was there had been a lawsuit between the A and B, the two first people. And A, the guy with the money, was wrong. He had basically stolen the money from the number two guy. So this story is telling you that this was a way for him to give back the money.
Right.
So why did the guy get beat up, the third guy? Why do you think the guy got beat up?
I don't know.
Okay. I didn't think you know the story anyway.
I don't.
The reason was there was a lawsuit between the parties, and the third guy was the judge who got paid off.
Oh, okay.
And so now,
of course,
now he got paid back.
Right.
For what he had done wrong. I use the story only as an illustration, like I use all the stories, because if it happened to somebody else, it could happen to you.
Yeah. That's
why I tell these stories. I want to tell two quick stories today about being in the right place in the right time. Because to my way of thinking, and I've thought this way for at least 30 years, to my way of thinking, if you do the right thing, right thing's going to happen to you.
I agree.
Right place, right time.
I agree.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Yep.
Do not such nice things. You don't think about it at the moment. You just don't. You don't relate it to, oh, what's going to happen to me if. and you do something like that, or you steal. Stealing is not good for your health.
Well, Judge, let me ask you something. I mean, you know between right and wrong, and I think most human beings know between right and wrong. Why does somebody do something wrong or something evil or something bad and doesn't think about it, and then the other person thinks about it and doesn't do that? There has to be some sort of weird
Well, that's why we're here.
conscious.
That's why we're here. We're here to make the decisions between doing the right thing and doing the wrong thing. We talked about energy not too long ago. When you do the right thing and you share your bounty with others, you're drawing down, like gravity, you're drawing down positive energy that comes from the positive tree, if you will.
Absolutely.
Called the tree of life. And it comes down to you in the form of something good. It doesn't have to happen instantaneously, but it's right place, right time.
Yep.
It's picking a jury that comes back for you as opposed to picking one that doesn't. Do the wrong thing, hits the mirror, comes back. That's what you got. Time separates cause and effect. I've said this many times, and I keep repeating it because it's so important. It's the essence of life. You create everything that happens in your life. If it doesn't seem to fit well or you don't like what's happening to you, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a lesson in that.
Yes.
So when you take that deep breath when you got into a lawsuit one way or the other, and you sit back and you say to yourself, what am I doing here? Look, ask yourself the question, what are you doing there? The best advice I could always give to people practicing law in any capacity is to resolve your disputes. You got nothing to win other than the money at the end of the day, maybe, and other than getting some ego satisfaction, maybe getting some instant gratification, maybe.
But what if the other
you
person
pay for that?
What if the other person doesn't want to settle with you, and you want to settle, and the other person doesn't want to?
You go ahead and you don't give up your rights. You don't give up your ability to get what you're entitled to, but you do it with civility.
Okay.
You do it without the rancor, without the feeling, without the hate that goes along with it. Hate is a horrible thing for you.
Yes, anger.
It's like
hate.
stealing is not in your best interest.
No.
You get to keep whatever it is you stole, maybe. For how long? Maybe not for very long, because time comes along and you run out of it. And the next thing happens is wrong place, wrong time. Like these kids, these poor kids that were killed in Texas.
Oh, man.
Why that bunch as opposed to someone else? One kid got shot in the head and went through and didn't cause him any real damage at the end of the day. It missed by a millimeter or something of killing him.
Wow.
But why?
Yeah, why? Why? I just always wonder that too. Like, and what causes some kid or somebody to kid or whoever, man, woman, whatever, to go do that type of thing? Why? Why do they do it? What's the psyche in there? Do you understand this at all?
Probably no more than anyone else. I've been reading and studying for many, many years, and some questions don't have answers, or they have multiple answers, and you got to pick one. It's a matter of choice. But okay. you take the negative situation. I had a client. He was a nice guy, probably still is a nice guy. I haven't seen him in a while. Pretty good guy. And for some strange reason, he kept losing. He was a good businessman. He was doing fairly well in some of his businesses. And he had been represented by a guy that I knew real well, and he lost. Good lawyer, too. He had a third case against somebody else. Same thing. He lost. So he's got this case. And he has the ability, because it was an insurance claim, and I did a lot of insurance stuff. There's a procedure in California which allows a party to an insurance contract to appraise the damage, not the cause of a loss, but the amount of damages. And it goes to a panel of 3 appraisers. It's like an arbitration. In fact, the rules are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And you get 3 people. You pick one, they pick one, and the 2 of them pick the third person as the neutral. The person, they call it the umpire.
Yeah.
That's what it's called. And it's provided for in the insurance code. And so the key in those kinds of cases is what? Get the neutral.
Yeah.
You're not going to get the other guy's guy, and they're not going to get your guy because you hired them with the expectation that they're going to be on your side,
exactly.
Right? And so the 2 of them get together and they pick the third guy, right? So they come back and my guy tells me, he says, we just picked this retired judge. Do you know him? I said, yeah, I remember him. He was a decent guy. He said he has a very good, strong record for being pro-plaintiff. Plaintiffs are the people who sue.
Right.
Defendants are the people who get sued.
Yes.
And so he had a good reputation for being pretty liberal in terms of money. I don't know what his political affiliation was, but he was fairly decent. Plaintiffs liked him. I thought he was a good guy. So I said, sure, let's take him. We take the appraisal proceeding, an office building.
Are you the plaintiff or defendant on this one?
Defendant.
Okay, you're the defendant.
No, plaintiff.
You're the plaintiff on this.
Plaintiff.
Okay.
And the guy had a legitimate loss. It was a piece of real property that had been burned. He had nothing to do with burning it. That was never the issue. It was really over valuations. How much was this worth? How much was that worth? And they get somewhat complicated when you deal with actual cash value versus replacement cost. These are complicated subject matters within the subject of insurance. So we go to this appraisal in Brentwood, and we start, and everything is nice and calm. We go out to lunch. It turns out we go up to the same place for lunch as the other side. And who's sitting with the next witness for the defense? The guy that they hired as the appraiser. He's having lunch with the witness. So we go back to the appraisal, and I said, I've got to make a record here. I said, during lunch, I was sitting there, and there's the guy having lunch with a neutral, supposedly neutral.
Right.
And so I said, I want to start over. This, I want to base the equivalent of a mistrial.
Yeah.
And he says, no, I'm not doing that. He goes ahead, and he comes back with a pretty cheap award, nowhere near what I thought it was really worth. And so we did an appeal, right? You in those kind of cases, in fact, if anybody's interested in learning how the appraisal process works, in insurance cases, it has to be against your own insurance company, and it only has to deal with the amount of damages. There's an article that I wrote on that subject called The Appraisal Process in California. It's attached as an exhibit in the book. So if anybody's in that involved in something like that, they can look it up and see what they're facing. This is the way it works. And when you know in advance of how things work, you have an advantage.
Yeah, you do.
Every time. I was just telling somebody this weekend that the problem with a lot of litigation is that the lay people are frightened because they don't know what to expect.
Well, yeah.
And it's to their way of thinking, it's out of control. Why is it out of control? Because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And
they're lost.
They're not really even not sure how good the lawyer is. Or the lawyer really cares. A lot of issues.
Yeah.
For people to stress out over.
Yes.
Okay? So the purpose of writing the book and the purpose of this show really is to help people don't get caught up in that. Know what you're looking at. Know what you're facing. Have some more certainty. And I tell the stories because if it happened to somebody else,
it can happen to you.
It's not so remote.
I know.
And that's why some of these stories, people say, nah, that didn't happen. Well, they all happened. Every single story in the book is true story because it did happen to somebody. And so the court, you go to the Superior Court to appeal these kinds of things. They rubber stamp it. Basically, the only way you can set aside an arbitration award or an appraisal award is to show either fraud, failure to disclose, things like that. And I found out later on, just in talking to the people in the business, you get to know each other pretty well after a while. I said, you know what? He'd been working so much and he'd been so liberal with the awards that the carriers were going to stop using him.
Oh.
Now he was on his own. He had to show them that he could give it the other way.
And taketh.
Yeah. Well, yeah. He had to show us, don't worry about me. I'll be okay.
Right.
Don't stop using me.
Yeah. You got to go the other way.
Why that one case? That's why I said, why that one? He'd been so loose before. Why all of a sudden?
Why,
it's because
Judge?
my client kept losing.
He kept losing.
And he lost this one too. He didn't lose it totally, but he didn't get what he was entitled to because what? Consciousness.
He had the loser mentality.
Consciousness. So start thinking about winning, and you will.
I dig it.
If you're a good person.
It's For the People at Judge Herb Dodell. Get his book From the Trench to the Bench at Amazon.com. We'll be back with more from the judge right after these important messages.
NBC Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
In his book, From the Trench to the Bench, Judge Herb Dodell demystifies the legal system, including both civil and criminal, the lawyers, the judges, and the process. As a judge, former deputy district attorney, and criminal defense attorney, he knows the legal system. He has the inside information that you need to pick a lawyer, and he's here to give it to you. No matter what you're facing that makes you think you may need a lawyer, Judge Herb will shed valuable light on your situation and reveal your best options and many secrets of how the judicial system actually works. To find out more about how the legal system really works, you can get your copy of Judge Herb Dodell's eye-opening book, From the Trench to the Bench, at Amazon.com.
Okay, we're back. It's like I'm on a soapbox here today. I think maybe I'm 3 hours ahead from my flight.
Yeah, did you just get back from
yesterday?
Yeah, from where?
From New York.
Oh, you were in New York, huh?
Yeah, I went to
right.
see my granddaughter.
Oh, well, cool. Did you have a nice birthday with her?
Well, I left on my birthday.
Well, I'm saying, do you have a nice? I mean, I'm sure you celebrated your birthday.
She's not even 3 years old yet, so she doesn't do the happy birthday yet. But sooner or later. Anyway, I was telling you that this guy was a successful businessman, but he kept losing his lawsuits. I couldn't figure out why. And the chances are that that's how he saw himself. And that's how people lose. They see themselves as losers.
I know, it's crazy, isn't it? I mean,
it's not. It's crazy not to be able to recognize it and fix it.
No, I'm just saying it's crazy for somebody. I mean, I've never had that mentality. I've always had that winning mentality as far as like, I know that is such a key to have that type of mentality. I mean, when I played sports or when in business or whatever, you got to grind it out, and you got to think you're going to win every time. I mean, you can't think of losing. You just can't. If you do, you lose. Correct?
Every now and again, you see a team that's one of the Cinderella teams or one of the cupcake teams, like in the March Madness kind of thing. They're 16th seeded, whatever it is, and they come back and they win. Why? Because they had the desire to win.
Yeah.
Everything is based on desire. You were created with two desires. The desire to receive for the purpose of sharing with others. When you do that, when you connect to that desire, you draw down positive energy. When you think about the other desire, which is the desire to receive for the self alone, ego, greed, all that other stuff, you draw the other kind of negative energy that comes down, and you pay for that by picking the wrong place. It was a very interesting story. It goes back a long time. I had a case that went to trial downtown, and there were some interesting facts in the case. It was a tough case, and next door to the trial court I was in was a case very, very similar. I mean, really similar. It was amazing how close they were because you come out of the hall, you have a break, the lawyers, everybody kind of schmoozes a little bit, and almost the exact same facts, which made it crazy. One jury came back for the plaintiff. One jury came back for the defendant. Almost same facts. Why is that? The parties. One of them was a winner, and one of them was not. And who do you think got the right jury? The winner.
Right. Yeah.
So you have to have a real positive attitude. In fact, I always thought that in picking lawyers, I would never do anything on the phone or
in person.
Text. To me, it's got to be across the table.
I agree.
I wouldn't take a case unless I actually sat right next to the person.
That's why I don't do any online dating.
I'd like to think of something clever to say about that. Did you put your picture up there, Gary? You got it on the camera?
This mug?
You got the camera turned on you, Gary?
No, I don't.
That's why.
Nobody wants to see it.
But you got a good tan.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I got good hair, too. But anyways, no.
Can I have some of that?
You can.
I used to have a little bit of that.
I know. I saw pictures
Oh,
of you.
I looked at what I looked like when I was in high school. I had a nice head of hair.
You did.
And I ran into an old friend of mine who's also bald now. He had a great head of hair too.
Well, you know, it is what it is.
It comes and it goes.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think this is a soapbox. I think you're absolutely right about positive energy and negative energy. I mean,
you create it.
You create it.
You absolutely 100% create it. And if you find yourself in a difficult situation, you're there for the reason of learning a lesson so that you can fix it. Once you fix it, it's no longer necessary to come back and bite you. It's the difference between order and chaos.
Let me ask you a question. How about if you're just in a negative environment, maybe at work, or, you're married to somebody, you're going out with somebody, you just got this negative vibe going. How do you turn it around? What advice would you give somebody who's caught, or maybe, if you want to use the legal system, maybe caught in this terrible intertwined thing with a lawsuit, or they want to get out of their job or something. How do you turn that negativity into positive energy?
Well, first of all, you look at the event. Some of it's unexplainable. Kids getting sick, things like that. There's no logical explanation for any of that. But it gets into some kind of deep philosophical
Well, let's
thinking.
do it. What do you think? I'm asking you.
I think we're here for a purpose.
Okay.
And in order to get to the goal that we were here to do, get roadblocks get thrown in the way. There's a bump in the road for everybody.
How do you get around it?
You accept it.
Okay.
It's all about accepting,
Amen.
Okay, this is not a good situation for me. What am I going to do about it? I can moan and piss and groan.
Right.
Or I could say, you know what? This is not a good thing. I'm not feeling good about this. There's a lesson in this. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to learn what I did wrong before. I'm going to pay back the debt. Truly, and I was thinking about it the other day, waxing philosophical. What is the concept really of repentance? If you think about it, what's the purpose? Start over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start over. That's what people say when they get born again. They're starting over.
Accept things the way they are and try to move on, possibly in a positive light.
Well, make the best of what you got.
Right.
And recognize that there's a spark of light in everything. There's a message in everything.
Yeah.
And if you get the message and you do something about it and you change your conduct and you move forward and elevate your consciousness to a better place, better things are going to happen to you. I don't have a lot of respect for people who play the victim all the time, because most of it is self-induced.
Right. I agree.
And you can say you feel sorry for somebody. You never want to see anybody suffering. I mentioned in court, I had a lady just dropped. I hoped she wasn't dead, but she just dropped. She was so stressed out about being in court, she couldn't handle it.
And did she what? She have
we had the
heart attack?
We had the paramedics there and everything,
Yeah.
and took her out on the gurney and everything. But you have to recognize what's going on. There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
The relationships that you have with people, you pick them. And you know how many times people get divorced and marry the same person? Not the same person. They marry the same type of person. The second time that they married the first time was wrong. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different answer. It's what happens over and over and over again.
It's crazy.
Because you didn't learn.
Yeah, yeah. No, with what I'm talking about is like my brother. He's very sick, and it's a very negative situation. But I've accepted it, and I try to turn it into a positive. That's why I love how you're talking about this, because I'm in that situation right now. And
most everybody in their lives are going through situations of one kind or another.
Right.
Whether it's a financial situation, which stresses out most people.
Right.
Whether it's a relationship situation, which is not working. Whether it's a business situation. All of these things happen because they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And you're not encouraging to suffer, but when you do have a situation which is not perceived by you to be positive, you got to change it. that's why I'm hopeful that people who listen to the show or read the book or whatever take a pause for a minute and say, you know what? I don't like what's going on here. I got to fix this. How do I fix it? I learn what remedies are available to me, whether it's in the legal system or whether it's in the system of life. You got to say to yourself, okay, this is not working real well, and I'm going to change it. I'm going to take that shot from half court, and it's going to go in. And they do, in strange kind of ways. You know, if you look at your life, even every day, the little things that happen that you don't think about. Oh, how coincidental! I don't believe in coincidence, not personally.
Yeah.
Nothing happens by accident or by luck or
It's
anything
meant.
like that. Man, it's the best way to analogize it is a movie. You want to go see a movie. It's playing at Sinopolis, whatever it is. So you get the big chair. And that movie's done, right? Done.
Yeah.
Your movie's done too. The only thing is, you get an opportunity to change the characters. You can change the locations. You're the director of that movie.
Change the ending.
Yes, you can. Yeah, well, ultimately, we all end up in the same place. But the bottom line really is you are in control of your circumstances. You are in control of what happens to you. The people that you choose to hang out with are the people you chose to hang out with.
Yeah.
If you find yourself in situations that are doing you harm all the time, then and you keep on doing it, there's nobody to blame. You have to sit back and take a deep breath and say, wait a minute, this is not working. This is not feeling good. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not making any progress. You got to call it a day. So let's move on to something a little bit more factual, because somebody asked me the question, what's the difference between mediation and arbitration? I had talked a little bit about the appraisal process. That's like an arbitration. A mediation is basically where the parties get together and use a third person to try to settle their cases. I'm a very big believer in mediation, very big. In fact, I took a course, they called it the Intense Litigation Mediation course at Pepperdine. I got a certificate, the whole thing. And I learned a whole lot about mediation from the pros. And a mediator does something very important. It brings you to reality. There's lots of ways to do it. Many mediators will take one group, put them in one room, take the other group, put them in another. And you never see each other. You know, she goes from room to room. And the first thing they tell you is how bad your case is. You think you got a home run with the bases loaded? Scratch single, maybe. But the other side, he goes down the street, he or she goes down to the other room and says, you know what, you're going to get killed in this case. This guy's going to run you up the flagpole. And you better settle this case because you're in serious trouble. And basically becomes an advocate for each party or against each party, going from room to room. And that's how they ultimately settle it, because they take the ego out. You know, you think you got the greatest case since sliced white bread? Maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if you don't have control over the outcome because of what you're thinking and what you're doing. And so the bottom line really is that's why you have to settle every case.
Don't you have to take your ego out of really everything? I think, you know,
you do. No, you have to have an ego. Ego's good for you.
No, I mean, I'm saying, you know, if you're too egotistical, it can harm you.
Absolutely, it'll harm you.
I mean, there's a difference between confidence and ego, don't you think? Or is that, you think that's?
Yeah, that's probably true, but it's a question of being objective too. You know, what's the reality of it, or are you just looking at it through rose-colored glasses? I was always accused of looking at things through rose-colored glasses. I always looked at the glass being half full, always. And even if people used to say to me, "Oh, that's never going to happen," I said, "Why are you saying that? How do you know it's not going to ever happen? Exactly. It may very well happen."
Yeah.
So don't already predetermine something is not going to happen to you. When you think that way, you're going to get a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's coming back to you in the way you send it out. That's the same thing with using what we call evil tongue. We'll talk about that right after the break.
All right. It's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell. And if you want to ask the judge any questions, email him. He will actually answer your email.
I did the other day.
This one here? Ask Judge
I got one. I just brought it in to show it to Gary. So you'd be surprised what people will say to you.
Oh, Lord have mercy. AskJudgeHerb@gmail.com. None of it's true.
Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
Did you ever meet a lawyer that was for the people? Someone who had the best interests of the people at heart? Herb Dodell has been a lawyer for more than 50 years and has been a Superior Court judge for 9 years, having presided over more than 9,000 cases. In this show, he will reveal the secrets of how things really work in the legal system, so you can maximize your position and benefit most when you're in trouble and need someone on your side to simplify the process for you. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
You know, and as I said before, I want to get into arbitration in a second. I try very hard to respond to the inquiries that I get. And this week, I'm proud to say not a single person asked about Stormy Daniels. Not a single one.
Yeah, what happened to Stormy Daniels?
You know, it's all about news cycles, you know.
Right.
What's hot is a story today. A month from now, nobody's been talking about it.
Right. Well, that's true about a lot of things.
Yes, it is. And that's why smart people who deal with crisis situations will basically say nothing and just going to sit back and let the time pass.
Yeah, that's what Trump should have done in the first place. Shut up. With some of this
that
stuff.
would probably have been pretty good advice. But
you should be his lawyer,
so
Judge.
let me get. Oh no,
Instead of Rudy Giuliani.
No, he's there for a very specific purpose.
Which is
cast doubt on any investigation.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
You got to attack. When something is coming at you, you have to attack its credibility in any way you could find. And it's also distracting from other issues at the same time. No, I think they're handling it as best as they can. Right or wrong, I'm not making any moral judgments because I don't do that.
Right.
But the reality is that they're probably dealing with this best way they can with somebody who's difficult to control. Very difficult.
He took the words right out of my mouth.
You know, he's determined to do what he wants to do, and he's going to do it. Now he has the power to do it. He's going to do it.
What do you think about this whole thing with Mueller and now Trump's going with saying that they spied on his campaign via the Obama administration and the FBI? I mean,
it's all part of the same.
Is it just rhetoric? You think, or what? Distraction, deflection?
Absolutely. It's all of that. But I want to get back to arbitration because arbitration is different than mediation.
Okay.
Arbitration is a final ruling.
Right.
And the rules of evidence pretty much apply, except you don't have a jury, and you have usually in arbitration, unless there's some of these where they have 3 arbitrators. I never found that to be very productive. I always preferred, if you're going to have an arbitration, go with 1. It's cheaper too. But arbitrators are subject to the same kind of thing I was talking about with this judge in the appraisal. In fact, I had a conversation with Harry T. Edwards.
Yes.
You don't know who Harry T.
Yes,
Edwards
I do.
You do?
He's a professor.
No, he was Chief Justice of the Court of Appeals for the Washington, D.C. Circuit.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the other Harry.
I met him socially, and we had some nice conversations, and I had written an article about arbitrations. I think I'd written that appraisal article at the time. I said, the problem that I have with arbitration is that a lot of these arbitrators are basically renting themselves out, right? If you get a reputation for being too tight, one side's not going to take you. You get too loose, the other side's not going to take you. What do? You cut the baby. The problem is that the baby dies when that happens, and it's not good for anybody. And they're always looking. There's one particular organization, I won't mention their names here. It's an alternative dispute service. It used to be the top one, and it was the best known. They were very, very one-sided to big corporations. Why? Because they hired them all the time. The regular lawyers, maybe you have one case, maybe a couple in your career that you're going to use these people. You know, the IBM and the big companies, they're using them all the time. So I think personally that there's a built-in bias. I don't like it. Most of the time, people are forced into arbitration. How is that, you might ask?
How is it, Judge?
How is it? It's in the contract.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In fact, I read one this morning. Parties are obligated to go to arbitration. Can't litigate. In fact, if you go to Kaiser, there's an arbitration clause in the Kaiser agreement. You can't litigate against Kaiser.
Really?
Really?
Oh, I didn't know. I mean,
Well,
a lot of people don't.
They're not. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Is it just big corporations that do that
No,
normally?
most it's in a lot of forms.
Is it?
Yeah, the one that I've never quite understood, it was in the form I read this morning. The parties agree that before a lawsuit, they're going to agree to mediate. Why put that in there? You can mediate if you want to. If neither party really wants to settle, why bother spending the money on a mediator?
Yeah.
They ain't going anywhere. Not going anywhere.
Well, let me ask them: if it's the agreement and one person chooses not to mediate the case, does it go to the lawsuit after that? Can the other person? They can't.
No, the way it works, if there's an arbitration clause in the agreement, what happens is the party that wants to arbitrate. Now you're getting back a little to Stormy Daniels. There was an arbitration provision in that agreement. What happens is you go to court, you file what's called a motion to compel arbitration. The judge will then compel the arbitration, will set up the mechanics of it. In other words, who are you going to pick, when are you going to pick them? If you can't agree to the arbitrator, how do you think the arbitrator gets picked? How do you think?
By the judge.
You can't agree. You can't agree. I want him and I want her. And
the judge or the...
Right, the judge. What's wrong with that? Who do you think the judge is going to pick?
I don't know.
Take a guess. Who do you think the judge is going to pick?
Somebody he knows.
Right. Exactly right. It's the Full Employment Act.
I feel like I'm back in high school.
Well, no, you're doing great in the civics course.
Thank you.
The bottom line, and you know, that was the problem with the drunken judge. Remember I told the story about the drunken judge?
Yes, you did.
That's exactly what that presiding judge did, only in that case it wasn't compelling arbitration. It was compelling a trial. He picked the guy that he probably went to the bar with.
Right, hung out.
Not that bar. I'm talking about the one in Clancy's down the road. And the fact of the matter is that the judge picks who's going to be there. It's the same thing with a receiver. You know what a receiver is? Not a guy that's on the end of the line of scrimmage.
Okay,
receiver. Receiver is somebody that's appointed by the court.
Okay.
To run a business that's in trouble.
Oh, okay.
And the creditors are concerned that they're going to run it into the ground.
Okay, so a third party.
So a third party, an accountant, sometimes lawyers, fairly frequently lawyers. There's a special department for that, for appointing receivers. Who do you think the judge appoints as a receiver?
Somebody knows.
Exactly right. And they and guess who has to approve the amount of compensation for the receiver? The judge that appointed the receiver.
Lord. What a gig.
And it's a slot machine.
It is.
and they get to know each other. See, I belong to an organization called ABOTA, American Board of Trial Advocates. Very, very nice, very, very professional, high-end organization. Really great lawyers involved there. And it's both sides. Plaintiffs and defendants are there. There's about 60% defense lawyers, insurance defense lawyers, but a lot of judges. We have judges night. Judges come and everybody buys them a drink and whatever it is. It's a schmooze-a-thon.
Right.
And everybody's looking for the next appointment. In criminal cases, if the public defender has a conflict, there's multiple defendants, what happens is there's either an alternate public defender, which is a separate organization, or the judge will appoint somebody, private counsel, to represent one of the defendants. In fact, one day I went to Malibu, this is a long time ago, and the PD was sick. I had a case on the calendar. So Judge Myra, who's a terrific judge, by the way, and I ran into him in a deli not too long ago, he said, would you take the calendar for the PD? So I had like 9 custodies. You know, I got paid by the county for stepping in as an alternate to the public defender.
Yes.
And that still happens. So you can get appointed. That's a little bit different. You're doing the court a favor. These other situations, Like even at a boda, people know each other. They see each other. You go to meetings together and whatever it is. Who do you expect is getting appointed to some of these things? People that he knows or she knows. That's the way it works. One hand washes the other.
Yeah.
Or something that
one great dinner.
Whatever it is. Look, I
gets you appointed.
The system is not perfect. It's the best system that we can think of.
Right. But
it sure as hell ain't perfect. And when you see it really in the arbitrations too. It really is it's very unfair. And it's almost bulletproof in an appeal. Even if the arbitrator makes a mistake of law, not reversible.
Why is that?
Because the court and these appellate courts in its infinite wisdom came up with the conclusion that because the parties did this and it's an expedited proceeding and it's cheaper and it's all those other things, we're not going to mess around with what the arbitrator does. The only time you can beat those, and I went through a couple of those, is if you show that the arbitrator just so happened to have represented some of these other people or parties to this arbitration in a prior life as a lawyer or whatever it is, and didn't disclose it. There are many cases where they belong to the same country clubs and whatever, but they don't disclose that. And it's not grounds to set it aside.
Wow.
You got to really show that there's some connection that was not properly disclosed. Otherwise, you're stuck. And with no appeals. No appeals. Well, you have an appeal. But you have to show something real specific to get that kind of thing overturned. They just don't overturn them.
It sounds like the system's a little rigged. Is that too strong of a word?
I think it probably is. Rigged?
Yeah, rigged.
I think that there's some advantages to one side over another. I've always believed that the haves beat the have-nots most of the time. Not most of the time, but a fair amount of the time.
What's the percentage on that, you think?
Oh, I have no idea. But
70-30, 60-40, 80-20?
I'd say it's pretty high because the haves have money.
Right.
And they have lawyers that can run you around. I told you the story. I had a case. They had me going from Texas to Colorado to Illinois. Every time I was trying to take a deposition of this guy, they moved him. And I had to go to court to get an order to go to the next place. And they make you spend a lot of money. And they will make it prohibitive. That's why if you're a litigant and you're just getting started, take a deep breath. Take 2 deep breaths because it's going to cost you. And if you go to these buildings to take a deposition for the other side, it's on the 54th floor, and they have some of the most beautiful artwork and statues in the room, guess what? You're paying for it.
Yeah.
And that's the way it works. That's how the system operates. When you say rigged, it's not rigged where they give somebody an envelope with money in it, although that's not uncommon in certain places, like Texas, because I had it happen to me. I told you the story.
Yeah.
The guy said, take care of the judge. I said, we don't do those kinds of things. Oh, yes, you do in Texas. So not that all judges are bad in Texas. I don't mean to imply that at all. But there's a good old boys network that's out there. So if you call that being rigged, in a sense, skewed, I suppose, to one side versus the other, the haves will generally bury you with costs. And if you can't keep the heat and you can't stay in the kitchen for long to fight it out, at the end of the day, they fold. And they either pay you peanuts or they don't pay anything or they do something. Just by that time, you just want to get out of this thing.
Leave me alone. I want out.
Yeah, you do. You'd be surprised how much relief people get when the cases are over.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Baldy the Clown.
Baldy.
All right, there you go.
But he was wearing a wig. He wigged out.
He wigged out. All right, we got to roll.
I remember that. See you next week.
All right. If you want to ask the judge any questions, email him. AskJudgeHerb@gmail.com. Cub, did I say com? And From the Trench to the Bench, available, his book, on Amazon.com. All right, Judge, see you next week.
Yes, indeed.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.